Hello, hello, welcome. My name is Kate,
I'm
and
Patrick.
we are really excited today to be diving into talking about the benefits of doing your yoga teacher training online, which is really fun. We've had the lucky experience of teaching in both in-person and online teacher trainings and have seen the pluses and minuses to both, and we think both of them really do have their benefits and then of course some drawbacks on either format, but we're excited to talk today mostly about like what the experience is like doing your yoga teacher training online.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I think we both come from a place too of, 10, 15 years of teaching predominantly in person and
Mhm.
almost where there was a stigma of doing anything online in the yoga world. So to now come full circle and see the advantages and the benefits of it, it's just been really great. Which is why we're on here to talk today to talk about some of those benefits and advantages and why doing teacher training online can be a really great resource and a great way to start your own teacher training journey.
Yeah, so I guess some background too, Patrick. We should probably talk about the fact that we really started. So I had been taking online courses, not so much yoga courses, but just general online learning, probably like starting 2017, 2018, I think, like some coaching programs and different things like that. Then we both took some business courses online together, worked with a coach in that way. And I think that was like our taste into online, not yoga trainings, but trainings in general, and we started to really like them. And actually, we launched our first online course in 2019. I think it was the summer before everybody turned to online. Remember our
Yes.
yoga essentials kit that we had? And then
Yes.
obviously in the pandemic with YogaRenew, we really dove into online yoga teacher trainings at that time. And it was certainly like an interesting transition to figure out how to translate everything that we had been teaching in person for so long into an online format. But I know I have some personal favorite things about the online experience, even though I'll be upfront in saying I was hesitant at first. I think because, like you said, we had done it for so long in person and there was kind of this stigma around it. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm happy to say I think that it definitely does. What have been some of the revelations for you and some of your favorite things that you see about online teacher trainings?
I think the thing that comes up the most is, well, for example, yesterday I was teaching on Zoom, which our program has, at your own pace plus some live sessions. So it's a little bit of both, which is, I think, fantastic. But in just yesterday's session, internationally, there was someone from Japan, Romania, and England. And then in the United States, there were people from Oregon, Maryland, Iowa. So it's just amazing to, be in contact and to teach yoga to people from all the different corners of the world. And because those people, from talking to them now and interacting with them and teaching online for the last couple of years, a big part of it is that they don't have access to yoga directly in their vicinity like we do. Like
Yeah.
me and Kate do here in the New York City area, where there's literally a yoga studio on every single corner. So I think to be able to give people good yoga and good yoga teacher training to parts of the world that don't really have any access to it, which I think when there's a stigma for online yoga, people forget that piece of it.
Yeah.
That we're providing yoga to people who don't have access to yoga, that they can just walk into a studio like a lot of us do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the accessibility, I think, is one of my favorite things about it. And the other thing that you brought up is the diversity in the community. In my
Yeah.
experience, when I did my online or in person trainings, it was all people who were very much like me with similar life experience living in the same area. And of course, it
Yes.
was nice for me to make friends that then I could go grab a cup of coffee afterwards. I think the ability to learn about other cultures and what yoga is like for other people in this greater international community, to connect from people with people all over the world, for us as teachers, but also for the students to build those connections with each other, is instrumental in terms of what we then can offer our students, because it gives us a different layer of understanding.
Absolutely. And I think with the first thing you just said, the diversity in the online training is is way more diverse than, the studios I've been teaching in and where I've lived and practiced for the last 20 years. So yeah, I think that's a huge benefit of the online programs for sure.
The other thing too that's so interesting to me is even here in the New York City area where we live, I've talked to people who have come up to me walking and they're like, "I know you. I'm in your online training," like passing them on the street. And it's so interesting because we have our headquarters here. We have an in-person training as an option for people who live here or want to like travel here, but people are still choosing the online training and many of them are like, "Listen, like I am a single mom or I'm a dad who I work full time and there's just no way for me to be able to fit in giving up weekends away from my family or whatever it is, or students. We have Stevens University or Institute of Technology, I want to say it the right way, in Hoboken. And for those students to try to afford an in person training, it's just not feasible. And so the other piece of it, I think, is the flexibility of the schedule where you can really do it in a way that works for you on a timeline that works for you is huge. And then the price point, like we're able to offer our online trainings at a more affordable price. And obviously, we do that very intentionally to make it accessible to more people. And I think there's a huge benefit to that because it brings it to people who would otherwise not be able to do an in person training.
Absolutely. I mean, we know the price. We've taught plenty of
Yeah.
in-person trainings, and part of the price of
And
doing an
had to pay for
in-person
them
training,
ourselves.
yes, exactly, is, the cost of a rental space in an area, and then the cost of the teachers and all the materials, and talking about thousands and thousands of dollars to do an in-person training, which
Yeah.
right away, like, cuts off a huge amount of the population that might be interested in deepening their practice of yoga, whether they want to teach or not. And that's just, a hindrance for the
Hmm.
access to becoming a yoga teacher. And definitely the online program is a fraction of that cost for the same teachers, the same material, the same content that we're offering online with YogaRenew.
Yeah. Another thing, too, now just talking more specifically about the training itself, like those are all, I think, just the accessibility piece, the diversity piece are cool things about it. But in terms of the actual learning in an online training, the other thing that I think people ask us a lot, like, does it translate, right? Can I get the same quality training? And I'll be honest in saying there's a few things that I think don't translate as well online as in person. Specifically, hands-on adjustments, I think are
Mm-hmm.
difficult. We can teach them online, but I think there is something if you're ever able to like touch another person, that sounds weird, but like the being able to practice on other humans versus
Yeah.
like practice in theory, I think is one of the things that probably, in my opinion, actually the only real thing that is more easily taught in person than online. But otherwise, I actually think the cool part about doing things online is that you can rewatch things over and over. Like I
Yeah.
know for myself when I did my all of my teacher trainings in person, there was stuff that I learned that the teacher said once that I wrote down in my notebook and I was like, I don't really fully understand this, but okay. And then I would like reread my notes months later and be like, I still don't really get this. And I wish that I could remember exactly the context of how the teacher said it. And then maybe it took forever, until like I did another training or I could ask a question to a teacher versus I think the benefit of an online training is you have the ability to pause, to rewatch, to take notes, to ask questions, to do other research. The ability to kind of relearn things and revisit information is huge. Like I think, in terms of being able to really take your time understanding the material.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big component of it. If you think of, like, anatomy or philosophy, I think those two sections, like, of a teacher training, you're getting 200 hours of material, and an
Yeah.
anatomy and philosophy, kind of, they're very important, but in a way they're their own little time capsule of, like, information. And to be able to go back to those sections over and over and over again, because this course has lifetime access, which is another benefit
Hmm.
of it, and you can just keep learning and absorbing that material. For me, I mean, maybe not everyone, but
Yeah.
anatomy and philosophy were the two that, I've continued to have to study the same material over and over and over again, 20 years into practicing, and, 18 years of teaching. And it's really the same material. It's just, absorbing it and absorbing it. And I think the course allows, if you're a user in it, to go in and revisit that material as many times as you like, which, you'd have to pay for over and over in person,
Yeah.
uh, which I've done,
Yeah.
taken plenty of in-person anatomy and philosophy courses over the years of the same material.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the ability to rewatch, to revisit the lifetime access piece is hugely important. And I think probably the other biggest benefit that I see in the online training is it's the rewatching, but it's also just being able to kind of pause and take in the information too. I think that there are times in an in-person training you're having a rough day, you're tired, something happened. Like I remember weekends where when I did my 300 hour, for example, I was teaching and we were running the studios full time, and then I'd have to show up at training like definitely not on my A game if I just taught a bunch of classes and I was exhausted, whatever. And sometimes the information, or I wasn't feeling well, I just didn't absorb it, to be honest, like couldn't understand it fully. And I think being able to pick and choose and say, like, today's not a great day for me, I'm going to pause this and revisit it tomorrow when I'm in more of a headspace to actually take in this information, is another huge benefit of it, right? You get to also make sure that you're in the mindset and the headspace to actually understand what you're being taught, which I think is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we see in the in-person training is the hesitancy for people to sign up is always like their schedule, right? It's
Yeah.
like it doesn't fit into their life, or they have a wedding 3 months from now and then a baby shower and all these things. And they look at the dates and it's like, oh, I don't know if I can really do this. Or they maybe do it and then life gets busy or they're not in the right headspace and then they wind up
Mm-hmm.
missing multiple sessions. And then they do this in-person training, pay thousands of dollars and don't really, their life didn't cooperate, for example.
Yeah.
So it's almost like with the online training, you can get into it when you have the time to actually get into it and, skip the times when you have events or life, emergencies and things that come up and, work at your own pace and still get all the same information and material that you would get in person. I would just say the one thing though is like, if the online training is, you have to kind of set the calendar for yourself,
Yeah.
just ensure that you're going to chip away at it, try to create a consistent schedule that you
Mm-hmm.
really are planning to work on it and, and do the work. Cause it's a slippery slope for some people too. If like they don't make their own schedule to get on there.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. And I think kind of the last benefit, if I'm thinking about it too, like from a teaching side, because people ask us all the time, is it really the same information that you're presenting, right? Like the videos of us teaching all of the poses in the online training, is that how we're presenting and teaching it in our in-person trainings? And the answer is yes. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think the challenge when we've been developing these online courses has actually been that we have to more succinctly and definitively teach the information because we know it's being recorded and we don't have the ability to just have, I'll be honest, and like when I've taught in-person trainings, maybe I say something and I'm like, this is the alignment for this. And then everyone's like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm super confused. Can you say this again? And then I get another go around or another go around. And it might take me 3 times in in-person training, but I get that feedback of students being able to ask the questions for the clarity versus I think when we were recording the information and developing stuff in our online trainings, we had to sit down and really say like, okay, how do we say this correctly the first time?
Yes.
What is like the actual, like distill the information down to what's truly important. And I think in that way, it has brought more clarity to our teaching, which I think makes it in some ways even stronger in terms of our delivery of information because of how thoughtful we had to be in terms of creating all of that content.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, that's just a great way to put it is, the effort that we put into to say something that's recorded. So it, all the information that we want to transfer is right there in that, in that video or in that lesson that the student is watching. It makes it more clear because sometimes in the in-person training, there's questions. And I remember plenty of times teaching an in-person, I was like, oh, I completely forgot to mention this one
Yeah.
thing, and then have to address it the next time we meet if I remember to address it, So I think those videos really capture like, the material in a very clear, concise, succinct way, which is a big benefit of an online program for sure.
Totally. And my final thought, this made me, what you just said kind of triggered this in my brain. And this comes from, as you know, but maybe if you're listening to this, you don't know. So my background prior to doing all this yoga stuff, I was a high school educator, and my graduate work, I was a special ed teacher. So I focused a lot on like learning styles and diversifying how people learn, and the fact that people learn visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, and we all learn differently. And I think an online training allows us to also hit more of those learning styles, right? So you can watch the video, we give you the opportunity to get on your mat and try it, but also there's written material that goes with it. So it kind of hits all three learning styles, I think, versus an in-person training, some of those visual components, like people who can learn by reading material, I don't think it's necessarily there as much, versus in an online training, it really gives us the ability to teach everybody in a way that works for them. And you get to choose as
Absolutely.
the student which one works best for you, which I think is really cool. So
Yeah.
so we're believers, I guess, right? We've been transformed
Converted.
into, and I think, like we said, of course, in an in-person training, when you're part of a small group and you get to be face to face with a teacher, some people are really looking for that level of like personal touch point in a community situation. And at our headquarters, we still offer the in-person training. So we think there definitely can be a benefit to that. But also, I think there's many benefits to the online training that I feel like that stigma is no longer there and can be delivered in a way yeah, you're still getting a really high quality training that can teach you how to be a yoga teacher in a more accessible, diversified, and palatable format, which is cool.
100%. Totally agree. Everything you just said, I don't have to say anything else.
Nothing. We're good. See, look at
Yeah.
that. Practice and succinctly saying things.
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, we hope if you're watching this that this was helpful to you. If you have questions, of course, you can always reach out to us, Kate at YogaRenewTeacherTraining.com, Patrick at YogaRenewTeacherTraining.com, via email. You can catch us on Instagram. I'm at Kate.Lombardo. What are you? At
Patrick
Patrick?
Franco Jr.
Yeah,
Jr.
cool. But we're here to answer any questions that you have about our trainings or training, yoga teacher training in general, if you're on the journey of finding one that works for you. So thanks for tuning in with us, and we will be back soon with more chats about all things yoga. All right.
See you,
Take
everyone.
care, everybody.